dear students, how are you all feeling today? I hope all of you are great. If you're happy, then say great by showing like this. Okay, I'll ask you once more. How are you feeling today? Yeah, that is. So, we met last week, right? Do you remember what we studied last week? We learned about adaptation, we learned about organisms that live on land, that live on water. Isn't it so? So, are you ready to begin today's class? Today we are going to learn about the biotic and abiotic factors and their interdependence, and also a small introduction to the topic ecosystem. Okay, my dear students, are you ready to begin today's class? Are you ready? Yes. So then, let's go.
So, my dear students, let us start reading. Are you ready? Yes. So, let's begin. Who is smarter? I am the one who provides shelter and home to most of the organisms, boasted the grand old banyan tree. Really? Why don't you look around carefully? Almost all organisms live in me. In fact, even you, Granny Banyan, dwell in me, claim the soil. So, what is happening here, my dear students? Here it is a conversation, it's a talk between the banyan tree and the soil. Have you seen the banyan tree anywhere with long branches from it hanging? Isn't it so? We build swings on it, isn't it so? Right. So, this is a talk between the banyan tree and the soil. The banyan tree says to the soil that he is the one who provides shelter and home to many organisms. And then so the soil asks, "Oh, really? Then why don't you look around you carefully?" Why did he ask that? Because he says that all the organisms live in me, and even you, the Granny Banyan who gives shelter to so many organisms, live in me. Isn't that right? Where is all the trees stand? Trees stand in the soil, and many organisms live in the soil. So when the banyan tree told very proudly that he shelters so many organisms, the soil told, "You stand in me, that is, you dwell in me, that is, the trees grow in the soil." That is what the soil meant. So there is no need to be so much proud, he told to the banyan tree. Now let us look at a small activity. Have you taken up your riff book? Is it ready with you? Okay then. The first question. Name some organisms which live in the soil. So which are the organisms which live in the soil, my dear students? So which are they? Some of them are earthworm, bacteria, turtle, ant, and insects. These are some organisms that live in the soil. Now, my dear students, what is this bacteria? Bacteria are organisms that you cannot see with your eyes. And what about earthworm? You all are familiar with this organism. You have seen outside your house. This is the earthworm. Now let's proceed. Many organisms live on rocks too. Write their names down. Now you can pause the video and try to write down the organisms that live on rocks. There are two examples given, the snake and the grass, which are the rest organisms. Some of them are fungus, beetle, bug, spiders, and worms. Those are some of the organisms that live on rock. Is it clear? Now, the next question is, Make a list of the uses of banyan tree to organisms. So this banyan tree, how is it of use to different organisms? Now we are going to check that out. The banyan tree gives fresh air and it provides shelter to many organisms, as it said, and it also provides us shade to sit. In villages we can see people sitting under a banyan tree because it is huge and it gives a lot of shade. And it is also a medicinal plant because almost all its parts are used for different medicines. Its leaf is eaten for cholesterol, its roots are taken for strengthening our teeth and gum. So almost all its parts has a medicinal value. Then the hanging branches are used to take fiber and make ropes. The wood is so soft, so it is taken as the firewood. This is the bark of the tree is also used to make paper. So the banyan tree has so many uses, right? These are only some of it. There are several organisms living in and around ponds, trees, and fields. These organisms need air, water, soil, and sunlight to live. All the living organisms need food and water, isn't it so? And the other thing is quite obvious. There are several organisms living in the pond, on the trees, and in the fields, and also around it. You have seen the birds on the trees, you have seen the fish on the ponds, the ducks on the ponds and around it. Isn't it so? So, all these organisms need air, water, and soil and sunlight to live. Plants and animals help each other to survive. How? The plants give animals shelter, and the animals also eat from the plants. The plants get the carbon dioxide for making their own food from the animals. So they help each other. Living and non living things. You learn this in your third standard. So the living and non living things depend on each other, that they are interlinked. Can I ask you a question? Can human beings live without air and water? No, right? We cannot stay without breathing for a long time. Even a minute makes suffocates us, isn't it so? We cannot breathe without air, right? And without breathing, we cannot live. Now, living things are biotic factors and non living things are abiotic factors. So, these are new words, biotic and abiotic. You can note it down. Biotic factors and abiotic factors. What are biotic factors? Living things are biotic factors and non living things are abiotic factors. Now let us see how do biotic and abiotic factors depend on each other. Here I have given a big table where in the first column there are biotic and abiotic factors. And the next column has interdependence. Isn't it so? So let us read the first three examples. First is the fish. Is fish a biotic factor or a abiotic factor? It is a biotic factor, isn't it so? So what are its interdependence? The fish live in the water and it feed on small organisms in the water. Now the next factor is water. Water is a abiotic factor and it provides dwelling place for organisms. That is, there are so many organisms that live in the water. Now the banyan tree. Banyan tree is again a biotic factor because plants are living things and living things are biotic. So what is a banyan tree's interdependence? It makes the soil fertile and helps retain water in the soil. To make it more clear, this will explain biotic and abiotic factor again. Biotic factors are living things and these living things depend on something else. That is, the living things depend on non-living things for their survival. They depend on the water around them, right? We depend on the water, we depend on the soil, isn't it so, dear students? So these non-living things which the living things depend on, they are interlinked, are called the abiotic factors. Is it clear? The non-living things are known as the abiotic factors. Now what Miss wants you to do is, you have to complete the table. This is the assignment for today. You have to complete the whole table. Write the interdependence of the following: lotus, rock, air, frog, water snake, light, tortoise, soil, and vines. You have to write their interdependence as we discussed in the above 3 examples. Later, Miss will send you the notes to check if what you have written is correct or not. But you have to try it on your own at the first. Now, we can see that living and non-living things in an area depend on each other. What does that mean? All the living things depend on non-living things for their survival, isn't it not? So, an ecosystem includes the mutually dependent biotic and abiotic factors of a particular place. So, what is an ecosystem? An ecosystem includes the mutually dependent biotic and abiotic factors of a particular place. That is, in a place where living things and non-living things depend on each other, it is called an ecosystem. You have to learn this definition. So what does it says? An ecosystem includes a mutually dependent biotic and abiotic factors of a particular place. That is, where a place where biotic and abiotic factors are mutually dependent. That is, the biotic factors live with the help of non-biotic factors. Such a particular place is called the ecosystem. So, we'll learn more about ecosystem in the next class, but to give you an example, forest is an ecosystem because all the things in the forest depend on each other. The trees depend on animals and water, the animals depend on water and trees, and vice versa. Isn't it so? So, we'll discuss more about it in the next class.
So my dears, so that was for today, and I hope you understood the topic. It was a very small topic, but you have an activity to do, isn't it so? So try writing the interdependence of the biotic and abiotic factors of the given things, and hope you got the introduction and idea to the ecosystem. Miss will explain ecosystem in more detail in the next class. So till then, bye, take care and stay safe.